The wind came down from the high ridges in long, mournful sighs, bending the prairie grass until it shimmered like waves beneath a gray sky. Late autumn had settled over the valley outside Dodge City, and the earth smelled of dry soil and distant rain. It was the kind of afternoon when the world felt too wide and too empty, when the horizon swallowed hope as easily as it swallowed men. Two little girls stood beside the wagon road, their small hands clasped together so tightly their knuckles had gone pale. Clara, the elder by barely 2 years, tried to keep her chin lifted the way her mother once had. Beside her, little May's curls whipped across her tear-streaked cheeks. They watched the dust cloud fading in the distance, the last sign of their father riding away. He had not looked back. The wagon he'd brought them in was gone. The horse was gone. The man who had promised to care for them after their mother's passing had vanished into the vast American West, as though the land itself had swallowed him whole. "Clara," May whispered, her voice trembling like the grass around them, "he's comin' back, ain't he?" Clara swallowed hard. She was 8 years old, and in that moment she felt 100. He just forgot something. She lied gently. "He'll come back." But the prairie answered with silence. Hours passed. The sun drifted lower, bleeding gold into the clouds. The road remained empty except for a tumbleweed that rolled lazily by, as if mocking their stillness. Hunger gnawed at their bellies. Fear crept into their bones. When the first rumble of distant thunder rolled across the plains, May began to cry in earnest. That was when a lone rider appeared on the western ridge. He rode a broad-chested bay horse with an easy, confident stride. The man atop the saddle wore a weathered hat and a long brown duster that fluttered in the wind. His shoulders were broad, his posture straight, but there was a quiet weariness about him, as though life had carved deep lines into his soul. His name was Samuel Carter. Folks in the valley called him Sam. He owned a modest stretch of land just south of the Cimarron River, not far from the cattle routes that fed into Dodge City. He kept mostly to himself. Some said he'd once ridden with a posse. Others claimed he'd lost a wife to fever years back. Sam never confirmed nor denied much of anything, but he noticed things. And that afternoon, what he noticed were 2 small figures standing alone where no child ought to be. He reined in his horse as he approached, careful not to startle them. Up close, he saw the dirt smudged across their cheeks, the 2 thin dresses for the coming storm, and the hollow look in their eyes that no child should carry. "Well now," he said gently, removing his hat, "you too lost." Clara tightened her grip on May's hand. She'd been taught not to trust strangers, but the man's voice held no sharp edges, only concern. "Our pa's comin' back," she said bravely. "He just rode off a spell ago." Sam glanced down the empty road. He'd seen that look before. Seen it on cattle left behind by careless drovers. Seen it on dogs tied to fence posts. He understood abandonment when he saw it. And how long ago was that? Clara hesitated. Since the sun was high. Sam's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. That had been hours ago. Thunder cracked louder now. The first cold drops of rain began to fall. Storms common. Sam said softly, "You got somewhere to shelter." Clara didn't answer. May buried her face against her sister's arm. Sam made his decision then. Some choices in life didn't need pondering. "Tell you what," he said, his voice steady as oak. "My ranch ain't far. Got a warm fire, and there's stew on the stove. You're welcome to ride out the storm there." Clara studied him carefully. There was no mockery in his eyes, no impatience, only a quiet kindness that felt almost foreign after the day they'd endured. "He'll come back for us," she whispered. Sam nodded. "Then he'll know right where to find you." That seemed to settle it. He dismounted and lifted May first, settling her gently in front of the saddle. Clara followed, stiff with uncertainty, but too cold and frightened to refuse. As they rode away from the empty road, the storm finally broke open above them. Rain lashed across the prairie, but Sam kept one steady arm around the girls, shielding them as best he could. Lightning forked across the sky, illuminating the vast loneliness of the land they left behind. And though Clara didn't know it yet, that ride would mark the dividing line of her life, the end of abandonment and the beginning of something neither girl had dared to hope for. Sam's ranch house stood modest but sturdy against the wind. Built of timber and stone, it bore the marks of years of honest labor. Smoke curled from the chimney. Inside, warmth embraced them immediately. May stared wide-eyed at the crackling fireplace. Clara hesitated near the door, uncertain if stepping further meant surrendering hope that her father would return. Sam knelt before them. "You're safe here," he said quietly. "No one's taken that from you." He found blankets and dry clothes, old shirts of his that hung like dresses on their tiny frames. He poured stew into bowls and watched as they ate with cautious hunger that soon turned desperate. Children don't fake starvation. Afterward, May fell asleep almost instantly in the rocking chair by the fire. Clara tried to stay awake, as though keeping watch might somehow bring her father back. But exhaustion claimed her too. Sam sat long after they'd slept, staring into the flames. He hadn't planned on children. Hadn't planned on much beyond surviving each season. The ranch kept him busy. Loneliness had become an old companion. But as he listened to the soft breathing of two abandoned girls in his home, something shifted in his chest. He remembered another small hand once placed in his, a wife's laugh, a life that had ended too soon. Perhaps the Lord had not forgotten him after all. Morning arrived bright and impossibly clear, as though the storm had washed the world clean. Clara awoke first. For a split second, panic seized her. Strange ceiling, strange walls. Then memory returned. May still slept nearby, curled under a thick quilt. Sam stood at the stove, frying eggs. He turned as Clara sat up. "Mornin'." She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she rushed to the window and looked toward the road. Empty, her small shoulders sagged. Sam noticed but said nothing. After breakfast, he saddled his horse. "I'm ridden into town," he told them. "Figure we'll ask around. See if anyone's missin' two brave young ladies." Clara's heart leapt at the word brave. The ride into Dodge City drew curious glances. Small towns thrived on speculation. By midday, half the main street knew Sam Carter had appeared with two mysterious girls. They checked the general store, the church, the sheriff's office. No one had seen a man matching their father's description, asking after children. Sheriff Wilkes leaned back in his chair, chewing thoughtfully. Sounds like he lit out on purpose. Clara refused to believe it. But as days passed with no sign, the truth settled like dust over everything. Sam gave them space to grieve. He did not force smiles, did not offer false promises. He simply stayed. He showed Clara how to collect eggs without startling the hens. He let May brush the gentlest mare in the stable. He fixed a small bed in the spare room and carved wooden animals in the evenings while they watched. Slowly, fear loosened its grip. The first time May laughed, a bright bell-like sound as a calf licked her hand. Sam felt something in his chest crack open. Clara began calling him Mr. Carter. Then one evening, after a nightmare sent May running into his arms, the name shifted. "Papa," she sobbed instinctively. The word hung in the air. Sam froze. Clara watched from the doorway, her eyes wide. He could have corrected her, could have reminded them of truth and blood. Instead, he wrapped his arms around the trembling child. "It's all right, sweetheart," he murmured, From that night on, something unspoken settled between them. Winter came hard that year. Snow blanketed the valley, cutting off travel for weeks. Inside the ranch house, however, warmth thrived. Clara learned to read from an old Bible Sam kept by his bed. May practiced writing her name in careful, crooked letters. Sam found himself smiling more than he had in years. Word spread through town that Sam Carter was raising the abandoned sisters as his own. Some folks questioned it. Others admired it. But Sam paid little mind to gossip. One evening, months later, as spring thaw began to soften the earth, Clara stood beside him on the porch. "Do you think he'll ever come back?" she asked quietly. Sam considered his answer. "I think," he said slowly, "that some folks don't know how to stay, but that don't mean you weren't worth staying for." Tears shimmered in her eyes. He knelt to her height. "You and May, you're worth everything." Years passed like turning pages. The ranch flourished. Laughter replaced silence. Clara grew tall and steady, with her mother's strength and a spark of something fiercer. May remained sunshine bright and warm, even on cloudy days. Sam taught them to ride, to mend fences, to stand tall in a world that could be cruel. And though blood did not bind them, love did. One summer afternoon, nearly 5 years after the day on the Prairie road, a stranger rode toward the ranch. Clara saw him first. Her heart stuttered. Older, thinner, but unmistakable, their father. He dismounted slowly, eyes scanning the property. Sam stepped forward, calm but resolute. "What brings you here?" he asked evenly. The man shifted uncomfortably. "Heard tell my girls are here." Clara stood frozen behind Sam. "They're safe," Sam replied. The man's gaze flickered. "I've come to take him back." Silence stretched tight as wire. Clara felt something unexpected rising inside her. Not longing. "Anger, you left us," she said, her voice steady despite trembling hands. "You said you'd come back." The man looked away. Sam placed a gentle hand on her shoulder but did not speak for her. Clara lifted her chin. He stayed. Those 2 words carried years of truth. The man shifted again, shame darkening his face. "You belong where you're wanted," Sam said quietly. For a long moment, the only sound was wind through grass. Then the man turned back toward his horse. He did not argue. He did not fight. He simply rode away. This time, Clara did not watch with hope. She watched with closure. As the dust settled, she slipped her hand into Sam's. "Papa," she said clearly. May echoed it from the porch. And Sam Carter, once a lonely cowboy on the edge of the prairie, realized that family was not forged by blood alone. It was forged by staying, by choosing, by love that weathered storms. Years later, when Clara stood grown and strong beside the man who had saved her life, she would often think back to that empty road outside Dodge City. What had felt like the end had, in truth, been the beginning. Abandoned by one father, chosen by another. And in the wide, unforgiving West, that choice had given 2 little girls a second chance at life.